Welcome to another episode of the United Drills of America. Today, we'll be talking about the infamous Memphis Grizzly himself, Pooh Shiesty. Please hit that like button, subscribe, and that notification bell. Let's go. Pooh Shiesty is the stage name of Lontrell Donnell Williams Jr., who was born on November 8th, 1999 in Memphis, Tennessee. His stage name is a combination of his childhood nickname Mr. Pooh and the nickname Shiesty, which refers to his way of life. Shiesty was born and raised in the Cane Creek Apartments on Memphis South Side. He spent 2 years in Pluggerville, Texas. He returned to Memphis and enrolled in summer school to help him finish high school, and at the age of 18, he began to concentrate on music. Hell Night was his debut single and music video that caught the attention of major record labels. In April 2020, Gucci Mane signed him to a record deal, 1017 Records and Atlanta Records. Pooh Shiesty's popularity grew even stronger due to his allegiance with Gucci Mane. He is best recognized for his 2020 track Back in Blood, which he co-wrote with rapper Lil Durk. On February 5th, 2021, Pooh Shiesty released his first commercial mixtape, Shiesty Season, which reached number 3 on the US Billboard 200. Shiesty was in a car in Memphis, Tennessee in July 2020 when a passenger fired a gun at a gas station, according to officials. Authorities say Shiesty was part of an armed group that fired and wounded 2 individuals while stealing marijuana, codeine, and high-end footwear from a hotel in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, 3 months later. Finally, after a performance at a Miami strip club in May 2021, Williams shot and wounded a security guard, according to the authorities. According to court records, rapper Pooh Shiesty was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in federal prison in Miami for a gun offense in Florida. In January of 2022, he admitted to conspiring to possess firearms in furtherance of violent crimes and drug trafficking. The Tennessee native was facing a maximum of 20 years in jail. Prosecutors dismissed 3 charges as a part of a plea deal, including a firearms charge with a maximum sentence of life in prison. The allegations stemmed from 3 distinct incidents, according to court records. Shiesty won't be a completely free man even after he does his time for a wild shootout. The artist will have some serious restrictions, according to legal documents. Pooh's sentencing docs obtained by TMZ shows that he'll have to be on supervised release for 3 years once he completes his 63 months in prison, and the supervision comes with a bunch of rules attached. During the 3 years, Pooh isn't allowed to associate with any of his co-defendants or gang members, and his PO has permission to search Pooh and his property from time to time. The rapper will also have to go through a treatment program for drugs and alcohol. As you know what they're gonna say, and what they always say, free Shiesty. Welcome to another episode of the United Drills of America. Today, we'll be talking about the 16-year-old gunner himself, New York drill artist, C Blue. Hit that like button, subscribe, and that notification bell. Let's go.
An NYPD officer has been released from the hospital and is now recovering at home after getting shot in the leg. Now, police say this happened during a struggle between the officer and a 16-year-old with a gun. The young suspect was also wounded in the shooting.
Cameron Williams, aka C Blue, is a 16-year-old drill rapper from the Bronx, New York. He's become widely associated with gangs in the NYC area and even has links to K-Flock, a New York rapper that was recently arrested for murder. January 19th, 2022, C Blue was arrested after his gun went off while he was grappling with an NYPD officer after cops responded to a disorderly crowd. The rapper had apparently refused to show his hands from his pockets, which led to the struggle. C Blue pleaded not guilty to second-degree assault and criminal possession of a weapon, among other weapons charges. Blue was accused of carrying a stolen gun and was already on probation for gun possession. According to the New York Post, courthouse, the law department said in a statement, just because the city cannot prosecute doesn't mean this individual should have been carrying an illegal weapon, a weapon which contributed to both him and a law officer being shot. The statement further read, pursuant to family court law, the case is now sealed and we are unable to say more about the matter. C Blue's case had infuriated Mayor Eric Adams as he cited the incident as an example of the dangers cops face as they seek to reduce gun violence in the city. Mayor Adams and the NYPD demonized my client in the press and accused him of shooting a police officer, said C Blue's attorney Don Florio. My client is thrilled that the matter will be closed and sealed, that all charges have been dropped, and it's always been our position that it was the police, not my client, who caused that gun to go off, shooting my client and grazing an officer. This is how C Blue caught a break. Bronx Supreme Court Judge Nida Samaj said video shows C Blue had actually complied with all police orders. He literally does everything you tell your child to do when they're approached by cops. He literally kept his hands up. He literally tried to record to make sure there was proof. He answered questions he had no obligation to answer, Samaj said. She also called out the police for the bust, saying that an arresting officer's testimony in court was incredible and unreliable. NYPD Police Benevolent Association President Patrick J. Lynch did not seem pleased with the charges getting dropped, as he dubbed the decision as absurd. This is a win for C Blue. I honestly hope that he stays out of trouble. He actually got off, even though he was carrying an illegal firearm and he was on probation. He actually got off because of a technicality. He was actually listening to the cops and they still used force, which led to both the police officer and C Blue being shot. He has some talent and he's affiliated with some rising stars in the New York drill scene. And you know what's crazy? C Blue was arrested and locked up with a $200,000 bail, which he reportedly posted with an advance he received after signing a record deal with Interscope. Would you say that he was lucky? Let me know in the comments. And I know one thing, unlike TK, he was able to beat the case. This was another episode of the United Drills of America. Hit that like button, subscribe, and that notification bell. Welcome back to United Drills of America, and today we're gonna talk about the late great rapper himself, Drakeo the Ruler, and the LA politics that led to his demise. Hit that like button, subscribe, and notification bell. Let's go. Drakeo was born Darrell Caldwell, December 1st, 1993. He grew up in the 100 sections of South Central, surrounded by liquor stores, churches, and mortuaries. Officially called Westmont, the neighborhood had the highest unemployment rate in the county, 24% in 2009. A half-decade later, it boasted its highest homicide rate too. One grim corridor along South Vermont was named Death Alley. He barely knew his dad. His mom worked as a preschool teacher. At 12, Drakeo was arrested for taking $1 from a tip jar in Pasadena. He was shot for the first time at 15 when he was still a freshman at Washington High. He was the victim of a random drive-by after leaving a party. The shooters were never caught, and Drakeo started carrying a gun after that situation. Rapping offered Drakeo an escape. Drakeo adamantly refused to join the Bloods or the Crips, once claiming on the No Jumper podcast, gangbanging is for losers. He regularly collaborated with all sides. Even though he grew up around Crips, wore blue bandanas, and made no secret to where his sympathies lay, he refused to officially join the set. One of the chief rules of banging is that you can only choose one. Drakeo will only rep his rap crew, the Stink Team. Drakeo became a moving target. During the summer and fall of 2016, numerous Bloodsuds declared war on Drakeo and the Stink Team. The rumor is that the Stink Team whooped some Inglewood Bloods on camera and in a boxing match, and that went viral. Someone tried to snatch a chain from someone else. People started talking shit back and forth online. At some point, Drakeo started exchanging diss tracks with RJ, an Athens Park Blood and close collaborator with YG and Mustard, which brought another neighborhood into the mix. The Stink Team had their car shot up, there were robbery attempts, Drakeo's mother's house was sprayed with bullets. Many of his childhood friends were neighborhood Crips, longtime rivals of Inglewood's blood gangs, and by virtue of association, Drakeo was sucked into the multi-generational war. The tension exploded in the December December 2016 shooting of Davion Red Bull Gregory, a member of the Inglewood family Bloods, at an adult pajama party in Carson, California. No one accused Draco of actually pulling the trigger, but given his celebrity and the ongoing drama, the presence of his brand new Mercedes SUV at the crime scene made the prime target for law enforcement. In July 2019, the jury found Draco not guilty on all murder and attempted murder charges, failing to reach a verdict on 2 counts, shooting from a murder vehicle and a rarely used gang conspiracy law. After a retrial, Draco came home on November 4th, 2020. Hatred and seething jealousy remained a constant threat. It was partially the residual fallout over Red Bull's murder, compounded with other perceived insults and taunts. It's impossible to get exact counts of the gang population of Los Angeles, but most estimates maintain that there are at least twice as many Crips as Bloods. The local cliques are known to be tight. Draco tried to make peace, but his enemies had refused to accept the truce, and if someone slighted him, he would verbally strike back. The most notable act of retribution was last August Ingleweird, a rap diss released by Draco. The tracks insults local allies that turn into rivals and accuses a whole neighborhood of condoning snitching and vows a massacre on Rodeo Drive. Exposition Park is located at the northern end of South Central. Just within a few miles, you'll walk in the hoods claimed by Bloods, Crips, Tresses, and MS-13. Saturday, December 18, 2021, thousands of people attended the Once Upon a Time in LA festival featuring acts like the Isley Brothers, Snoop Dogg, YG, and of course, Drakeo the Ruler. It had been a little over a year since the 28-year-old South Central rapper walked free after beating first-degree murder charges that carried a possible life sentence. Draco is accompanied by half a dozen friends and a lone security guard. Then things go abruptly sideways. An unseen person shouts, "Fuck the stink team, fuck Draco." Without hesitating, Draco and Ralphie walk towards the challengers. 6 guys wearing ski masks and crimson hoodies square up in a fighter's stance. A brawl begins. The LA street rapper always preached that he always rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6. Unfortunately, Draco and his entourage, including his licensed and bonded security guard, had been meticulously searched and stripped of weapons before entering. All of a sudden, everyone started fighting like the Royal Rumble. It seems to be a fair fight. Out in front, Draco unleashes jabs and uppercuts. Ralphie does the same. Several minutes pass and festival security are nowhere to be found. Hundreds of police officers on the grounds that night, and they're suddenly invisible. Security, the police, and the team of medics arrived too late. Draco had blood pouring all over his face and neck. He was stabbed in the neck and murdered that night. Draco's friend K7 had alleged that YG set the whole shit up because he knew Draco was gonna take his spot. According to K7, who was backstage at the Once Upon a Time in LA festival, YG had been allowed to bring in 70 people, nearly 5 times what Draco was permitted.
I'm speaking facts, bro. YG a real life bitch, nigga. All them niggas is bitches, bro. I don't give a fuck, bro. I'm so mad, bro. On my mama, bro. YG did some hoe shit, bro. And if I see Cuz, I'ma slap the shit out that nigga. Niggas doing all this puff talking like they hard, bro. But nigga, we fighting big ass security. You got those security guards fighting, nigga. Like, come on, bro. That shit ain't cool, bro. On my mama, bro. Them niggas got the big ass ball security guards snuck in knives, all type of weird shit, nigga. Let them niggas come 70 thick, but only told us we only can bring 15 people, bro. That don't make no sense, bro. You only told us we can bring 15 people, but let them niggas bring 100 motherfucking people, bro.
Over the last 3 decades, gangster rap has become a pivotal part of LA culture. It may not be the 90s when the city regularly eclipsed 1,500 murders a year, but homicide rates are up 50% since 2019. In 2021, nearly 400 people were killed, a 15-year high. Another 1,400 survived shootings. It's not just gangs. Broader society is suffering from an excess of guns and the despairing sense that nothing matters. The hip-hop world is hardly immune. In February 2020, Brooklyn rapper Pop Smoke, only 20 at the time, was murdered in a home invasion at the Hollywood Hills mansion he was renting from one of the Real Housewives. A year after that, Nipsey Hussle was gunned down in a parking lot of his Marathon clothing store at Crenshaw and Slauson. It seemed like shit like this would never stop. Rest in peace, Draco. Welcome to the United Drills of America. Today, we're going to be talking about Jacksonville, Florida, where a lot of shooters and a lot of murders going on right now. I want you to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let's go. For decades, South Florida has dominated the state's rap scene, led by artists like Uncle Luke, Trick Daddy, Trina, Plies, Rick Ross, Kodak Black, and XXXTentacion. And whenever anyone outside the state talks about Florida rap, they almost always bring up southern regions like Miami and Broward County. But now, a new area of Florida is demanding attention thanks to an explosive new generation of rappers in Jacksonville, Florida. In 2021, many of the city's rappers make songs about street life in Duval County, and they all do it from a different perspective. A lot of these rappers are tangled up in unresolved beef with each other, which is openly referenced on songs. The wildly disrespectful lyrics includes disses about deceased rivals, brought unprecedented national attention to the city. To fully understand what's happening right now, you need to go back to the beginning. Jacksonville has never been thought of as a major music city. To be honest, it's more well known as the home of Jacksonville Jaguars. And to be fair, there haven't been many successful rappers to emerge from the city over the years, minus a few exceptions. Historically speaking, Jacksonville has been one of the more violent cities in Florida, but things have become progressively worse in recent years. In 2019, there were 131 murders in the city, and in 2020, that number shot up to 176. These tensions have spilled over into the music, and Jacksonville's drill scene is full of rappers referencing loved ones who have lost their life to gun violence. In some instances, you will never hear those same rappers dissing dead people who they once had beef with. The authenticity of the music reels fans in, but many ignore the uncomfortable reality that some of these songs are about actual dead people. With all the new eyes and ears on Jacksonville rap comes exciting possibilities for local artists, as well as dangerous drawbacks. On one hand, a lot of these young artists are now in better situations to feed their families. On the other hand, the national attention is putting a bigger spotlight on local street beefs, which has only amplified tensions. Artists like Fulio point out how fans involve themselves in conflicts and magnify violent situations. The fans play a big role, he says. The same way our job is to wake up and rap, it's almost some of these fans' jobs to wake up and troll under Fulio's comment section. Do you think he's right? You guys be the judge. Welcome back to the United Drills of America, and today we're going to be talking about the late great Detroit legend Dex Osama. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let's go. Dex Osama was born Byron Cox in Detroit, Michigan, August 13, 1993. The young rapper came to regional recognition through a series of tracks, notably Chopper Freestyle and Death on Me. Active between the years 2013 and 2015, Osama was signed to Meek Mill's label and released multiple videos for his various tracks. Osama was fatally shot in front of a Detroit strip club following an altercation involving his girlfriend, who was working at the club, and two other men. Osama was the first person to fire a shot at a local strip club the night he was killed. Surveillance video captured the scene outside Crazy Horse on Michigan Avenue leading up to the fatal shooting. Several angles were played in court during an examination for two men charged in the case, including footage showing Osama being shot. Otis Davis, 46 at the time, was facing charges of open murder, possession of a firearm by a felon, and felony firearm. Dietrich Odoms, 31 at the time, was charged with assault with intent to a murder, possession of a firearm by a felon, and felony firearm in connection with the fatal shooting. According to testimony, Osama fired a shot inside and another outside the club before he was fatally shot by Davis. Rapid gunfire is heard on the video after the up-and-coming rapper is shot and runs away. Davis' attorney, Todd Perkins, argued his client shot in self-defense and said Davis believed Osama had a firearm in his hand when he shot. Assistant Wayne County Prosecutor Michael Reynolds countered when Davis fired the first shot. Osama was not posing a danger of imminent death or serious bodily harm to Davis. Before the shooting, there was an argument between two groups, and Osama didn't have a gun in his hand at the time, Reynolds said. He also said Cox was running and posed no threat to Odoms when Odoms allegedly fired shots. Odoms' attorney, Marlon Evans, told the court his client was not shooting at Osama. Detroit police officer Raymond Diaz testified during the hearing in the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice that he collected evidence at the scene. Between the inside and outside of the club, he collected 25 shell casings. All of them were .40 caliber. Police recovered a gun that Osama was seen on surveillance video putting it in a trash can at a nearby gas station. When Detroit police officer James Winsett got to the scene, he said he tried to find out what happened from Osama. He kept saying, "I can't breathe, and I don't want to die." Police said Osama collapsed at the gas station and was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. Chantel Sturdivant, the girlfriend, testified she was working at Crazy Horse on Michigan Avenue in the early hours of September 7th and was getting ready to dance for a man in a crowded club. But first, Chantel said she looked at Osama, who's her boyfriend at the time, and he signaled to her not to dance for the person that they both knew. When Chantel walked up to Osama, he poured champagne on her and told her to get dressed, appearing very angry. When he poured the champagne on her, she ran to the back. Chantel testified that she heard one shot while in the dressing room soon after the champagne incident, but didn't see who fired it. Another person arrived at the hospital with a gunshot wound from the same incident several hours later. Chantel said she didn't know whether Osama had a gun the night he was shot, but she said she had seen him with weapons in the past. The night of the shooting was the first time Osama saw her at work, she said. Davis has a previous conviction of second-degree murder in 1989, and he paroled in 2012 and discharged from parole in 2014. Both men ended up agreeing to plea deals. Davis was sentenced to 5 to 22 years for manslaughter, and he's eligible for parole in 2025. Odoms was sentenced to 2 years for a felony weapons firearm charge. Dex Osama's shadow looms large over Detroit's current wave of successful hip-hop artists. As a whole, Detroit's hip-hop energy is as viable now as it's ever been. There's no doubt Dex Osama will be at the forefront of Detroit's trap scene along with T Grizzly, I Swear Vezo, All-Star JR, and 42 Doug. Rest in peace, Dex Osama. Welcome to another episode of the United Drills of America. Today, we're going to talk about the ATL legend himself, Bankroll Fresh. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and that notification bell. Let's go. Trent Tavius White, aka Bankroll Fresh, was born August 2nd, 1987. He was raised in Zone 3 on the west side of Atlanta, one of the rougher neighborhoods in the city defined by police patrol zone. Growing up, crack was sold up and down the street. Now, the block is just as depressed, if not as active. He credited his grandmother for teaching him the game. Formerly known as Young Fresh, he changed his name to Bankroll and released his Life of a Hot Boy project in 2014. Things kept moving up. Now he was aligned with 2 Chainz and Street Execs Management, collaborating with the likes of Future, Metro Boomin, Wiz Khalifa, and Mike Will Made It. Bankroll Fresh was shot and killed inside an Atlanta recording studio at the age of 28. More than 50 shell casings were recovered from inside and outside Street Exec studios. Police had worked the case for years without ever making an arrest and had difficulty solving the complicated case. Surveillance video from the night Fresh died showed a group of men outside the studio holding guns. Something off camera appears to catch the men's attention as several of them scatter. After years of investigating, officials closed the case, coming to the conclusion that Fresh was not murdered. Sergeant John Chaffee with the Atlanta Police Department announced that investigation determined that he was shot in self-defense. The Atlanta Police Department reported that the evidence led them to believe Fresh was the aggressor in the shooting. According to the investigation report, there was previous bad blood between Fresh and the rapper No Plug, whose real name is Mendez Owens. Owens was reportedly invited to the Street Exec studio studio that night to try to make peace between the two men. But not long after No Plug got there, Fresh reportedly confronted him and a fight broke out between them in the back room. Investigators said neither of the men had guns at the time, but that quickly changed as several of the other men there were armed. The fight was broken up, but the report said it quickly spilled outside the studio. Minutes later, No Plug and his friends drive off in a Dodge Charger, but it wasn't long before they came back. The report said Fresh greeted them with an SKS rifle, flashing it at the group. At the same time, 5 other men came out of the studio, guns drawn. Fresh then points the rifle at No Plug's car while yelling at the people outside. The video shows Fresh fire the first shots towards the Charger. The car pulls off, but not before a flash of gunfire comes from inside the car. As Fresh walks back into the studio, the glass of the front door shatters, which is when police believe he was shot in the right hip. About 2 minutes later, Fresh is being carried out of the studio by friends who drive him to Hugh Spalding Children's Hospital. The Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office ruled his cause of death as a gunshot wound to the abdomen. No Plug said that he and Bankroll Fresh were longtime friends but had a falling out. In late 2015, No Plug had Fresh escorted out of the 9th Ward when the rapper attempted to come to a turkey drive. This incident would be the catalyst to an altercation that happened the night of Fresh's death. The night of Bankroll Fresh's death began with No Plug going to the studio to meet another person. Plug planned to go to their show where he would pass out his CDs, but Fresh supposedly learned of this arrival at the studio and confronted him there. No Plug explained that he and Bankroll Fresh got into a small fight at the studio. The incident was brief and no punches were thrown. After that, No Plug left the studio, but as soon as he was pulling away, he realized that he dropped both of his phones during a scuffle. No Plug turned around to retrieve his phones, but before he could get out of the car, Bankroll Fresh came out with around 15 people. Plug claims that all of them had guns. He also said Fresh fired a shot at his car. In response, he shot back and Fresh got hit. Police filed no charges against No Plug. Plug says the video of the shooting proved that he was telling the truth. He also blames the people surrounding Bankroll Fresh for the late rapper's death. He believes they were encouraging Fresh to confront him instead of simply letting Plug retrieve his phones. This is a crazy situation. RIP Bankroll Fresh. Welcome to the United Drills of America, and today we're going to be talking about the late great Bay Area legend Mac Dre. Do not forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and that notification bell. Let's go. Mac Dre, real name Andre Hicks, born July 5th, 1970, may be a familiar name to you. The Vallejo, California native made a name for himself in the San Francisco Bay Area at just 18 with his hit single Too Hard for the Fucking Radio in 1989. As his career took shape, he branched out to nearby cities and to other avenues of earning cash. Mac Dre and the Romper Room didn't just rap about daring heists, brazen robberies, and gunplay, they actually lived it. The gang wound up being prosecuted for a series of over 40 bank and business robberies, including a string of pizza shop robberies. The allegations against Dre and close associate J Diggs, Jamal Diggs, were so persistent that Mac Dre called a detective out by name on his song Punk Police. He even recorded an entire album, Back in the Hood, over the Fresno County jail phone while awaiting trial. Mac Dre, J Diggs, and other members of the label gang would be convicted and sent to federal prison for various terms. After his conviction, the FBI called Bay Area station KMEL and requested I Fought the Law and dedicated it to Mac Dre. That actually happened. The trial was featured in Complex's piece on rap's biggest trials. Upon release from federal custody, Mac Dre and his associates rebranded into Thiz Entertainment in 1999, starting the hyphy movement, which is a subgenre of rap. This is when their music started to become nationally recognized, particularly in Kansas City, Missouri. KC has a culture of being violent and murderous. The year Mac Dre was killed was actually one of the bloodiest. In fact, serial killer Terry Blair had had just been captured a few months prior after terrorizing the Prospect Corridor and murdering at least 6 women. Dre would get caught into this culture of violence in the early morning hours of November 1st, 2004, after performing a show in neighboring Kansas City, Kansas on Friday, October 29th. Mac Dre, Keek the Sneak, The Jacka, Messy Marv, Yuck Mouth, and other notable Bay Area artists attended an after party. It is alleged that a minor argument broke out between Mac Dre and the show's promoter, who has never been publicly named. American Gangster also describes an altercation between associates of Tone and Dre that night, but this is not really supported by witnesses. Keek the Sneak would actually tell Vlad TV later that he and Mac Mall had an altercation and they are both associates of Mac Dre. Jay Diggs, who was not present on account of federal probation conditions but was a close friend and partner of Dre, does not put much significance on this disagreement. Yuck Mouth would tell Vlad TV that they did indeed get paid and also minimize the issue as a lower than expected turnout for the show. Law enforcement later will find this disagreement with the promoter much more significant. Yuck Mouth and Keek will say the atmosphere in KC was tense. Dre had decided to stay in Kansas City after most of the other artists chose to leave town and had booked a club walkthrough for Halloween night. After leaving this engagement, Dre and an unnamed driver were heading northbound on US 71 highway, now known as I-49. Just past the overpass above 85th Street, a stolen black Infiniti pulled along the driver's side and opened fire with what is believed to be an assault rifle. The van Dre was riding in plowed across a grass median and into oncoming southbound lanes, where it will roll over and come to rest on its wheels at the bottom of an embankment. Mac Dre was thrown from the wreckage but was determined to have died as a result of multiple gunshot wounds. He was 34 years old. No shooter or motive has been clearly identified, but that did not stop this case from taking even more lives based on rumors. After Dre's murder, those rumors swirled like a tornado in Kansas City. A local rapper by the name of Fat Tone, real name Anthony Watkins, quickly found himself at the center of this whirlwind, possibly due to his presence at the show and the reputation he had carved in Kansas City in prior years. Fat Tone was once arrested and charged with the murder of a pregnant 17-year-old Shamika Posey and her unborn child, a tragic crime that technically remains unsolved. He was released after 9 months once charges were dropped due to uncooperative witnesses. He was also accused in several shootings and robberies and had ties to the infamous 51st Street Crips, even allegedly earning a leadership position after a turf battle with convicted gang member and killer Rashawn Long, a former 51st Crips shot caller. Long previously did time for a 2001 murder, leading to Tone's rise in the ranks during that time, and Long is currently in federal custody for a lot of bad activities. There's been stories through the grapevine about Tone in the filthy 50s. Nothing was ever proved in court, but if you ever listened to his music or lived in KC, you knew he wasn't one of the most upstanding citizens. This bravado and reputation did Tone no favors when questions about his connections to Dre's murder came up. According to many of their associates, including Jay Diggs, neither man had an issue with each other and Tone was a victim of talking streets. He most likely had nothing to do with it, given a lack of motive and a positive prior history with Dre's associates Sibo and Killer Tay. Tone had, however, been shot in the Westport area of KC when he was only 22 while riding in a car with artists associated with Mac Dre, such as Messy Marv and Killer Tay. Tone will put a picture of himself in the hospital bed holding up a middle finger on the cover of his very next album. He will also utilize local news reports in his songs and on the album. This shooting is likely the genesis of rumors that indicated Tone, along with rumors that he admitted to the killing on a song. The exact opposite was true with Tone, criticizing his accusers and proclaiming his admiration for Dre. The Westport shooting that injured Fat Tone also remains unsolved. Not only did unofficial sources clear Fat Tone of Mac Dre's murder, so did the authorities. Lead investigator Everett Babcock even called Tone into police headquarters to warn him of likely retaliation. By official accounts, Fat Tone was cleared in Mac Dre's death, but the opinion of the street court differed at the time. Rappers and promoters, as well as co-conspirators and close associates of Mac Dre, Mac Minister and Coleon, real names Andre Dow and Jason Mathis, respectively, were among those that blamed Tone and will retaliate in Las Vegas on May 23, 2005. Fat Tone and Jermaine Cowboy Akins, a federal fugitive, were shot multiple times by an AK-47 and left in an underdeveloped cul-de-sac just 5 blocks from a property rented by Corleone. Cowboy was found in the street and Tone in a 1992 Toyota Tercel. There were rumors at the time that Tone had been castrated and these would be unfounded. Tone was just 24 and Cowboy was just 22 years old. Mac Minister and Corleone had lured Tone to Las Vegas on the premise of meeting Snoop Dogg, as Minister had promoted a show for Snoop at the MGM Grand. Allegedly, Tone became irritated with Mac Minister after repeated requests for cash and jewelry. He felt they were squeezing him. After the show, the Tercel and the white 2000 Pontiac Sunfire would drive to the murder scene. Cowboy and Tone were probably under the impression they were going to Corleone's rental home nearby, only the Pontiac will leave. The Pontiac was recovered, burnt out, and Mac Dre and Mac Minister's hometown of Vallejo the next day. The Tercel was loaned to Minister's girlfriend by a Berkeley activist. The Pontiac was owned by 21-year-old Lee Danae Lawrenson from Payton, Utah, and a call girl who worked for Minister in Las Vegas. Lawrenson was abused and trafficked by Minister and ultimately found dead with a single gunshot wound in her skull just 2 days after the November 2nd, 2005 indictment of both Minister and Corleone. Lawrenson had bought the ammunition used in Tone and Cowboy's homicides. When approached by investigators before the indictment, she refused to cooperate. That did not help her. Nobody has ever been convicted for her murder. Mac Minister stayed on the run for nearly an entire year after the indictment, even recording the intro to the Game's Doctor's Advocate album while being a fugitive. Minister was arrested March 2nd, 2006. He and Corleone would each be given 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murders of Tone and Cowboy. Minister has given interviews to DJ Vlad from prison saying that he's been framed due to his celebrity and mutual connections. I honestly believe the Bay Area has never fully recovered from losing the legendary artist Mac Dre. Mac Dre was the heart and the soul of the music scene in the Bay Area, and his death has definitely impacted a lot of fans and artists even till this day. Rest in peace, Mac Dre. Welcome back to the United Drills of America, and today we'll be speaking about the late great Alabama legend Doe B. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and that notification bell. Let's go. Glenn Thomas, aka Doe B, was born June 13, 1991 in Montgomery, Alabama. He was the 4th of Shirley Thomas' 5 children. He was an outgoing child, always outside and in the community centers playing sports. He was always making noise too, Shirley said, now realizing the significance that he had and the talent will later blossom. Doe B was signed by Grand Hustle Records, T.I.'s label. He was the first person to land a major record deal from Montgomery since the Dirty Boys signed with Universal Records in 2001. He struck gold with his hood classic Let Me Find Out in 2013, and he finally made the big leagues, appearing on both BET and MTV. He was making music with major artists including Birdman, Juicy J, Kevin Gates, Rich Homie Quan, and T.I. It was a college night inside the Centennial Hill Grill and Bar. At least 4 guns made it through the nightclub security. As people partied, chaos broke out just after midnight, December 28, 2013. Someone started shooting. A bullet struck Doe B in his leg, 1 of 8 injured that night. He bled to death before making it to the Baptist Medical Center South. Doe B was only 22 years old when he was murdered. He wasn't even supposed to be in his hometown that night. He should have been en route to Miami to record with Pharrell and T.I. Darius Thomas was charged and convicted for the murder, but others will say he wasn't what killed Doe B. They claim Montgomery's lawlessness, hate, and jealousy killed the rising star. Darius grew up with Doe B in Cloverland. The two went to school together. Doe B's choice to hang out with another side of town is what upset the guys from where he was raised because they had beef. The bigger he got, the more jealous they got. Most of the rap beef you see is about jealousy and territory. Gunned down in front of hundreds within a nightclub, days after Christmas, Doe B's life came to an abrupt end way too early. Doe predicted his demise in several of his songs, rapping in another, "I'm going to pray for you while you pray on me. The city stigma is if you make it, you die." Doe B's manager didn't even know he was at the Rose Supper Club that night. He did his best to keep Doe B out of Montgomery in general. 29-year-old Darius Thomas was sentenced to 85 years in prison. Thomas was arrested for the shooting, which also claimed the lives of Kimberly Johnson and Timnarius Hamilton back in January 2014. He accepted a plea deal for the murders of Hamilton, Johnson, and Doe B. Thomas, who was also wounded in the shooting, would have likely faced life in prison without the possibility of parole if he didn't plead guilty. Still, it doesn't appear like Thomas will likely be making it out of jail. Thomas is the father of 5 and didn't have a criminal history before this conviction. That played a role in his request for an apology and mercy from the family of his victims. He apparently began shooting in the bar because of a bottle was thrown at him. Gone too soon, rest in peace, Doe B.